right, welcome back, Urbana Sustainability Advisory Commission in person for the first time since the pandemic lockdown, and also with the uncertainty that we might go back to online Zoom meetings at some point in the future due to the Delta variant. So I'll go ahead, call the meeting to order, and Scott, will you please call the roll?
Andy Stump. Here. Tomas Delgado.
Here.
Morgan White.
Here.
Madeline Garbaz.
Here.
Grace Wilkin.
Here.
Stacy Gloss.
Here.
Jessica Lemkel.
Here.
And James Corbman said he was going to be absent.
Okay, great, we have a quorum. In your packets that you received for this meeting, there was a copy of the meeting minutes from our previous meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes from July 29, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that.
We are no longer on Zoom, so I imagine that we can actually take not a roll call vote, but all in favor of approving, no, sorry. Any corrections, changes, or additions to the minutes from July 29th?
No.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Are there any additions to the agenda this evening that anybody would like to bring up?
I'll have a quick announcement at the end.
Okay, thank you. All right, for our next agenda item, it does look like we will need a motion to go into a closed session on consideration of security procedures pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C8. Is there a motion to enter closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Thank you. Roll, Andy? And I think we do need a roll call vote for that. Please call the roll.
Sorry.
Here.
Andy Stump.
Here.
Tomas Delgado.
Yes.
Morgan White.
Yes.
Madeline Garbaz.
Yes.
Grace Wilkin.
Yes.
Stacy Gloss.
Yes.
Jessica Lemkel.
Okay, motion passes. I believe that we will be leaving the city council chambers to go into closed session. All right, the closed session dialogue has concluded. Is there a motion to close the session?
I move to close.
I think maybe to close, like end the closed session and then continue the open one, maybe? Do you know?
I think you need a motion to close.
Okay. I'll second your motion to end the closed session.
Thank you. Roll call vote to end closed session, please.
Andy Stump.
Yes.
Tomas Delgado.
Yes.
Morgan White.
Yes.
Madeline Garbaz.
Yes.
Grace Wilkin.
Yes.
Stacy Gloss.
Yes.
Jessica Lemkel.
All right, the closed session has been closed and we will re-enter our regularly scheduled meeting at this time. We will move on to presentations. Scott, will you provide the staff report, please?
Sure. Maybe. So geothermal Urbana-Champaign has closed. We had 14 contracts signed, totaling 59 tons of capacity. This is, I think, a first ever bulk geothermal program in the country. I haven't seen any others. And so we were also talking about a technology that's not nearly as well known as solar, and so I'm happy with these results. I think you know, the understanding and awareness of geothermal energy systems is much, much greater in our community than it was before. And I'm confident that beyond the 14 contracts, we put a lot of folks from not knowing anything about geothermal or not much to on the fence to get a system, and maybe next year or in future years they will be geothermal owners. So I'm happy with that. We did some work at the end of last fiscal year at the closed landfill. We were able to get a vendor to seal and abandon 8 wells, sampling wells at our closed landfill. So over time, there's reasons that we change the location of a well, or a well isn't working anymore. And over time, those wells were disused, but not properly sealed and abandoned. So we're getting some of that cleaned up at the landfill. I'm happy to see that done. The county has moved forward with a property assessed clean energy program. They've secured an administrator, an outside administrator for that program. They've updated their PACE ordinance, and they're now making plans to open up a PACE program for commercial property participation. You may remember PACE is Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's a way for commercial property owners to finance renewable energy and energy efficiency improvements on their property on better terms. So better interest rates and better time frames for repayment. It also allows the repayment to be placed on, as a special assessment on the property rather than as a loan against the person or the business. So the big idea there is with PACE, more efficiency and renewables projects will get done.
So Scott, doesn't that mean that if a business owner, a commercial property owner wants to put on like solar or geothermal on their building, they don't have to worry about whether they'll own the building for 15 years or so, because the cost of paying off the loan for the renewable goes with the building when they sell it. So it's no longer a reason to not do it, that you're not going to have the building that long. And that's one of the huge reasons why people don't do it, is because they're like, I'm not sure if it'll pay for itself before I sell the property. But now with the PACE program, it doesn't matter, because it'll go with the property for paying for it. So you do get the savings and the benefit, even if you don't have it for 15 years or so. Right?
Correct. Just as people don't take the upgraded, HVAC system or the rooftop solar panels with them when they sell a commercial building, likewise, the unpaid portion of the loan also stays with the building or the property.
Thanks.
And is there going to be does Illinois have a residential PACE?
No, there is no residential PACE in Illinois.
Yet.
Yeah. The next SAC meeting would be September 7th at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Go ahead, Grace, we'll take questions.
Thanks for the report. I was wondering two things mostly about the landfill and the PACE. With the landfill, I was wondering, are there more malfunctioning wells at the landfill that need to be just removed? Is that what happens to them?
There's one that we're still using. We're going to replace this year. We're going to drill a new well, and it's a malfunctioning sampling well. And so I didn't include it in this bid because we're still using it. It's just not ideal. It's not working as well as it should. And so I want to replace it first and then abandon the one that we're going to replace.
But that's the only one after these 8 are closed?
Yeah, I think the rest of them are active sampling wells.
And could you remind me where that pool of money falls in? Because it's quite a bit maintaining the old landfill. Is that right?
Yeah, so let's see if I can pull up an aerial here for you. So there are two sides of the Urbana landfill. One side, the city is solely the owner and responsible for. The other side, the city is in a consortium with City of Champaign and the University of Illinois to maintain the property. Oops. So bounded by 74 University Avenue, this stream and the factor in these other developments is the closed landfill. And I think I can highlight the parcels too for you to make it a little easier. So there's one parcel, here's a third parcel, and a fourth parcel. So the two parcels to the east, this one here and this one here, as well as this section right here, this triangular section you can kind of make out from the aerial of that other parcel, are all part of the Champaign-Urbana Solid Waste Disposal System, which we refer to as cuss words by its acronym. That is City of Urbana, City of Champaign, and University. That portion of the landfill has, off the top of my head, something on the order of $60,000 a year in funding for maintenance and sampling and leachate collection activities. The city part of the landfill to the west has some maintenance performed by the Landscape Recycling Center because they're occupying a portion of it. That's this area here. Has some maintenance performed by the police department as they have a police firing range here. And likewise by the fire department because they have a training range right here. After that, any money we spend on the city side of the landfill, we're looking hard, we're looking high and low for monies, and so it's going to come out of the operations budget typically. There is leachate collection on both sides of this landfill, so on the city side and on the cuss word side. We pay the sanitary district for that disposal, and we test that as well.
Thank you. And for the PACE program, that seems like really great, sounding like it helps with financing and the loan kind of being tied to the property. I was wondering if there are any city incentives for green buildings, like for new developers or remodeling. I understand there's the group buy and the PACE and things that help, which is awesome that those things exist, and I appreciate that. But I was just wondering if, like, when any new developer comes, if it was something like through the city of like this kind of discount or rebate or some kind of like upfront incentive to get them thinking that direction.
Years ago, I know that we added some energy efficiency elements to the TIF incentives, but those TIF districts, I think, some of them have expired, and so I haven't kept up with that. Essentially, you got some points for doing some energy things, and with some of the old TIF districts. Not sure if those are still in play. Just normal, normally zoned developments, I don't think the city has any other incentives. If a development comes through as a parcel unit development, a PUD, and a lot of them do, that has some general rules for the city and the developer to negotiate the final development. And oftentimes that involves upgrading the efficiency or renewables on the property. For a developer to go through the PUD process, they have to provide some additional public benefit because they're asking to use a different pathway than the established zoning.
Thank you, but that's not necessarily required or incentivized.
No, there's some general, so PUD in I don't know if it's the zoning ordinance or I think it's in the zoning ordinance. It has some general rules and some general categories of things developers can offer above and beyond. And I can't remember exactly what's in there. But I have seen, developments where that has been offered as efficiency improvements.
I think one of the things that we had talked about as a possibility that the SAC could support happening is a green neighborhood zone, a sustainable neighborhood zone. And it was something that when we talked about it a year or two ago, the thought was we need to incorporate that in the comprehensive plan or the overarching plan that's going on for the city. And it's something that I think would be really neat. There's some ideas about doing a district energy with geothermal. That's something that a few other places around the world have done. And we have a lot of great expertise about geothermal here. And we could look at actually creating a, maybe it could be in partnership with, I don't actually know, the Housing Authority or HUD, or to create a district energy geothermal low-income housing neighborhood in Urbana. I think that'd be really cool. And not that it happened, not that it's there now, but you made me think of it when you were talking about that. And there was something we did that energy competition. Did that include residential at all, or was that just commercial when we did that with BART?
Commercial.
Commercial, and nonprofits.
The city is also not enforcing the latest energy conservation code, which it's fairly new. Most cities haven't acceded to the latest code. I think we're a couple iterations behind, so that's another action we can take.
Mm-hmm.
The latest energy conservation code also has some optional either annexes or appendices, I can't remember which they call them, but they have optional codes you can choose to add in for things like solar ready and EV ready. So those can be really valuable in terms of drawing a line and saying, you know, everything from now on is going to meet some readiness standards for renewables.
And I understand the city of Champaign requires blower door testing on new house construction, but Urbana does not.
Thank you. Sorry, I had two more. On that line, I was wondering how we would make that happen, what it would take to upgrade to the new energy codes, or at least a more updated version.
I don't know the answer to that other than to say I think it takes a council ordinance. I don't know if they typically do public engagement or contractor training or anything like that, or if they just announce on such and such date, or they pass an ordinance on such and such a date, we'll be enforcing the new, and folks need to be prepared for that. I think that's probably a good question for the building safety division.
Cool. But it's part of the zoning ordinance that requires that, or is building
Um,
ordinance?
I don't think it's in the zoning. I think it's a standalone ordinance. You know, a city decides this is the version that we're enforcing.
Cool, thank you. And the last one was, you said that the geothermal bulk buy that we had was the first ever that we know of? Like
As far as I
anywhere?
know in the country,
Wow.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that really helped, because that even like 2 years ago when my heater went out, geothermal was like a unicorn in town, and now people can get assessments, and I think that it has made it a lot more accessible. So that's awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah, 5 years. It's one of the experts that was on a call that Andy helped organize, a webinar on geothermal, said just 5 years ago, geothermal heat pumps and air source heat pumps were technology-wise not nearly as good as they are today. Something to that effect, wasn't it?
We are the first city to have a group buy program, but I think there was, I wouldn't say a county, but a collaboration of 3 municipalities maybe went together on a group buy, but that was several years ago. And then New York just came out with a new program for district geothermal systems. So they just are putting $15 million into that program, and they just went through the first round of projects that they accepted, so might see that in other states going forward.
I just want to say something about geothermal too, because I love geothermal. It turns out, so lots of people think that geothermal is supposed to be on the coastlines because they think of it as this deep direct where you drill down to where there's heat underground and you pull it up. But what we're talking about here in the Midwest is actually heat exchange, and you just have to go like 5 feet down. You don't have to go, I mean, that's the minimum is 5 feet, but you don't have to go miles and miles and miles. And it's just really perfect here because of the evenness between our heating and cooling seasons. So it's so hot and then it's so cold, and so the geothermal is like just moving the heat back and forth, as opposed to even just in Canada, for example, it's more cold than even, right? So this is really, really, really a good place for it. It's very, very easy, very quick, very awesome. More people should do it.
Any other questions or thoughts? All right. We're going to, before we move into the next thing, so as part of the staff report, because it's related to geothermal and heat pump technology, kind of I just want to put a bug out there about doing some study on, since we are talking about electrification and what that sort of means for climate change going forward, we would be interested in looking at some numbers and a little bit of a study on the affordability of heat pumps, heat pump sort of air source, as well as the geothermal, their costs and their expected operating costs in comparison to what we have on the market in terms of like 95% efficient like gas furnaces as an example. So just a bug on that, thinking about some issues around affordability and who pays for electrification in our communities and what policies may need to be in place to ensure affordability depending on what we find in the math, doing the kilowatt to kind of therm conversions on efficiency.
I think the Rocky Mountain Institute has done some of that, put out a report earlier this year, and I think what they were saying is if you go with deep energy retrofits for a house, it's cheaper, but maybe not so if you're just parceling it out project by project. But yeah, I think Rocky Mountain Institute has some work on that.
Sorry, I'll use that kind of just segueing into our continued discussion on goal setting and prioritizing goals for diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice as related to community environmental sustainability. So the way that I think about what we're kind of going to move into next is that Jess is going to kind of help us workshop through some of our ideas that we've been brainstorming around community environmental sustainability. So I'm hoping that Scott's able to share on the screen a Jamboard that was created. And I know that my internet's not totally working. I think that some people's internet are and not everybody's is. So I'm going to let Jess sort of take over this portion of the meeting to start workshopping this with us. We do have 20 minutes on the agenda, and if somebody has access to internet and the Jamboard and wants to be recording as Jess is going through it, that might be helpful so that we're not asking Jess to kind of balance both, if that would be helpful.
And the goal with this is that everyone would be able to record. If you are using your email address that you received with, that reminder about today's meeting too, if you are on this and able to, do stuff on this Jamboard. So, I think basically.
And if
The
UPTV
idea-
would put this screen up on the big screen
I'm sorry,
for the
what'd you
public.
say?
I'm asking UPTV to put my screen, the Jamboard on.
I think that would probably be the easiest for walking through. Yeah.
I was going to ask, I'm just not really used to Jamboard, so do we get a link or how do we get to that if our internet's working?
I believe you would receive in your email like an invitation to collaborate, just like any sort of Google Drive document. So a Jamboard is just like Google Slides, Google Drive, it's all the same, just a new kind of interactive workspace, basically. Yep. Looks like 6 peeps are on there right now. So kind of while we're waiting here for Scott to come back, if you see down along the left-hand side, there's like the Post-it note. maybe everyone click on that, and then you can see how easy it is to just create a Post-it note that you can type on. And that's pretty much the only thing, like, feature that you're gonna need to know how to use in order to participate. Scott, do you mind switching to the next slide? So this was my thinking of how we could use this, and this was made to be used during our time apart, but still could be useful potentially, now. Step 1, just reading through each set of goals and action items. These are the same goals that we brainstormed together as a group, the same goals that Morgan and Grace got together and kind of sussed out and came up with these other lists. I try to bring it all together in one space in the 4 categories that we've already kind of predetermined. And then step 2 would be to analyze. So with a blue Post-it note, record any questions or comments you may have about that particular action item. Consider and comment on the following. Will this goal increase justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion? Do we need to edit or restate this goal in a different way? What action steps will be needed to accomplish this goal? And then beyond that, spending time doing some prioritizing with green, orange, and yellow Post-its. So green would be like, we should be doing this now, or doing this very soon. Orange would be like, maybe next year. And yellow would be maybe not yet, or maybe not ever, because it's kind of like just too much or outside of our purview. And then pink would be used for volunteering. Now, this is kind of a huge process. I was thinking it would be, if we only have 20 minutes today, we might have time to just get through step 2 of just reading through and putting down questions and comments on blue Post-it notes next to the items. Yes, and so whoever just did that test, is that Grace? Thank you. You might notice that you can either make that way huge, that Post-it, or small. So depending on how many Post-its are on a space, you can just kind of attach them around the idea so that it's readable. And again, everyone would be using blue Post-its for today. It would be nice if you put, maybe would be nice if you put your initials on your Post-it, or maybe not. I mean, it's Google Docs, so you can see who wrote what anyway. So kind of up to y'all on that. How do we feel about this so far? Questions, comments, or thoughts? Okay. So do you want to maybe go to the next slide, Scott? So this is just a restate of the areas and kind of idea, like, general topics in each of those areas. You can skip to the next one. This would be section 1. So community involvement, just focusing on blue. These were all of the ideas for community involvement. And you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner what key ideas are missing. It felt like when I was doing this, we all came up with these ideas from a quick brainstorm on the spot. Are there things that we want to scrap? Are there things that we weren't even thinking about at that time that we want to add? So that might be a space to put the key ideas that we're missing. And then basically just going through this with each of the 4 areas so that we can just start questioning and commenting. Yeah.
I think that this is really cool. I know it's kind of hard to get the whole breadth of everything that's going on. I don't know, maybe since we're trying to keep it public so that, this meeting can be recorded on what page we're on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can start on the community involvement page and spend a few minutes on community involvement with blue sticky notes. After that, we can move to the next slide, which would be one of the other topics.
Great.
And I think is it okay to ask folks questions in kind of real time in this space? How do people feel about that?
I mean, since
If
we're
you put
together,
something
we could
on.
even just go through and put our group comments on one blue Post-it note, if we wanted to do it that way, or, I mean, there's really just different ways of doing it now that we're kind of together.
I'm just sort of curious for Grace, where you're saying to partner with a comp plan and putting that next to different items listed. I just was wondering what you meant by that.
Sure. I put partner with comp plan next to plan and hold community listening sessions because that's something we talked to them about. Helping partner when they get to the phase 2 of the kind of targeted topic discussions. And I think the same thing with community involvement with SAC. I think that working with the comp plan could hopefully be that two-way communication. So us listening to the public and also getting some information out to the public or just awareness that SAC exists and they can come and join us.
Awesome. All right, let's get a list of organizations to talk to and select some to go visit. We can tell them about our efforts and ask them about theirs. Thank you. And just for a reminder, the blue sticky notes are questions or comments? Can you just remind me?
There's questions and comments, and I did put that just kind of in that black box there, but you can also slide it, if you see where it says 4 of 9 up in the top center, you can go back and look at the directions and read these. That was kind of a lot, and, you know, I always need to reread.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. About the ISE group, I feel like there's updates about that they're maybe not doing the community with stakeholder sessions for now, or, right?
That's right, that the IC effort for the U of I resilience plan to create an environmental justice plan for the community with the community. They were originally thinking that this summer they'd go out and visit with various groups and do listening sessions, but we've decided to create a better structure for what our intentions are before actually starting to enact. So it's more of the initiating phase than actually developing the plan phase right now. Scott, what's the status on the tree assessment? Is it completed? Could we get a presentation?
We're going to have a presentation next month.
Oh, it's already scheduled, okay. Perfect.
Can someone add for me under develop and find funding for mini community garden programs at home and apartment complexes to also include in that rain barrels? Thanks.
You beat me on the draw.
Yeah, both. I like that.
Can
And
someone?
maybe even end tools. I'm sorry, Maddie, go
No,
ahead.
it's totally fine. I feel like the mic's not working. It's awesome. Anyway, I was gonna ask if someone could define for me a little bit more, like, what we mean by hospitable bus stops.
This was a random idea that I had at the time, just because I live on the corner where there is a bus stop, and, you know, sometimes people will come and stand under our awning to get out of the rain. And I was just thinking like, man, it would be nice if we had the money to just build them something out there so they have a comfy spot to sit. And maybe there's little food pantry action, recycling bins, like how can we not, I just find it absurd that it's so hard to recycle anywhere you're at, you know? I think that's a thought, and I thought perhaps that could be even included in those spaces, but again, kind of a random pie in the sky, but you know, could be super cool, especially for peeps who are riding buses all the time.
I was actually, is it working or is it not working? Green. Is it, okay, is it, okay. Anyway, so I was gonna ask, I wasn't sure, but just under the umbrella of more hospitable bus stops, I don't know, if, like what, I'm assuming it's probably not committee, but I'm thinking about like, anti-homeless architecture on bus, like, benches. I don't know if that's really a thing in Urbana, but like it would fall into that category. Okay, so. Like, oftentimes there's like little armrests that they put on the benches.
Highlight mine on key ideas that we're missing, just the points, the questions. I'm still been wondering about what can SAC actually do with no money, little influence, and I think that it's important to focus on things that we can control, like within our commission, and potentially recommendations to the city that we do have some control or influence over, and partnering with other organizations who may have that power, influence, money, whatever resources that we might not have as the SAC, because I just don't think that us meeting once a month are gonna like do all of these things. But I think that we can partner with people who may already be doing it and kind of, you know, mutually benefit and work together, because I just don't see our little commission doing these things on our own, that is.
I'd like to learn more about energy justice. I don't, I don't really, not sure I understand it yet.
Can you enter a comment there?
Yes, I think I can.
For the, assess, I can tell it's, okay, the distribution of community resources, that seems pretty vague to me and super, like, far-reaching, I guess, so I don't know if maybe there's, maybe it's just not written the right way, or if there's, like, you know, what that was based on. Because I know we're combining a bunch of things, but that just seems like, you know, just maybe not part of something that we could do, at least not right away. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that referring to like the list of community, I don't know, community organizations and all that stuff, or that maybe Tiger was talking about, or is it something else? Does anyone know?
Assessing the distribution of community resources.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was just when we were talking about information in general, because when we're looking at inequity and discrepancies, that we kind of need some factual things to base it off of. And I think that, you know, everyone has observations or ideas, but kind of getting like an aerial view. And I think Scott sent us some stuff that had been some previous research on food availability and things. But I think the goal there was just kind of having a aerial map to kind of have an informed way to look at inequity in the city.
Yeah, I think that rings a bell for me. I don't know if this is on another post-it note here, but I know we talked about food deserts, so maybe that's what it's more referring to.
Yes, I think that's definitely part of it. There is a whole separate one that's addressing food apartheid
Okay, is
issues
there? Okay.
by expanding community gardening and zoning
Okay.
stuff, but I think
Okay.
that, yeah, that falls under it, definitely.
Okay, gotcha.
Scott, can you remind us, what is the recycling policy for commercial, for businesses? They don't have to recycle, right? But I don't know. Is that it? Just there is no there's no requirement at all for them?
Licensed haulers have to make recycling services available at some price of their own choosing.
Okay. Thank you.
To go along with that, I thought there was a thing maybe about, like, I think we talked about recycling in like student dorms at one point, about like how they don't have to do
In
that.
the residence
or-
halls?
Yeah.
Well, there's recycling bins in every residence
Okay.
room now. It was
maybe it
put
was
in
more like,
recently, though.
Okay. Okay.
And we've been working on upgrading the outdoor recycling. You know, the garbage cans, we're replacing them with dual bins. You have landfill and recycling. It's a process, but it's underway. Including at some bus stops. Yay. I do. I want to share one about the recycling. And you were just talking about the incentivizing. I think it's very reasonable and plausible to get the youth in our community, essentially the high schoolers, to visit local businesses and encourage them to offer recycling. And then maybe there's like some sort of social media thingamadoodle about whether they have it or not, and some encouragement to have recycling bins. What do you think, Maddie? As a concept.
I think that it's possible, but probably not probable.
To
that we
get
could
students
get
to do that. But
students
even if,
to do
what
it.
if
We
you
could
just had
definitely
four?
Get some. We could definitely
That's
get
enough.
four.
Four is
we
enough.
could definitely get four.
Walk down Main Street, knock on doors. That's what I'm talking about. And then, but then make it, maybe we could try to blow it up somehow. We could get, SAC could tell everybody that we know, and
I think that
Make it a
would go
big
back
deal.
to using social media that we talked about last meeting with Instagram and TikTok specifically. That would go along with that.
I think that'd be fun. I'd walk with you. I'd rather move to the other topic that we have, if we're going to still do this. Isn't there one more agenda item?
I think that there's 2 more slides on here. So there's a.
Ah,
Yeah, the other one's
Okay,
just
it's
a
not so short.
5-minute thing and a quick announcement. So there's not much on other items on the agenda after this, and 2 more slides on here. I would be fine just continuing this out, just so that we have the next 2 slides before we don't see each other again for a month.
Let's go ahead and do that.
I think even just general like ADA accessibility in council chambers, we were mentioning, is a good one that falls in there too, that I appreciate Scott looking into. you want a presentation from someone about what that means or how to do it, in a sense?
Yeah, and call for someone to do a review as well. So for example, I was in a ton of meetings last week that
Yeah, I think that could definitely be a possibility. I think what I was thinking here was more even just the written ones or the way we call it, you know, like roll call if people were down for, like, instead of, you know, Mr. or Miss whoever, just kind of those things. And in our written documents, like City Council last year sometime did allocate some money to redo the language on a lot of the city documents to make them gender neutral. Just where instead of he or she anytime, just going to they and more gender neutral language. So I think I was thinking of more of the written ones. I don't know if we have as much, we don't have the full like extent of written documents, but I think that was kind of the target, and then just general practices that we do. I think that a workshop could be helpful, but I think I was thinking more of like the systemic things more than like the interpersonal communication. I think they're both important.
I had a question on what embed understanding of intersectionalities in SAC outreach is referring to, or what it necessarily means. The one on the top right, embed understanding of intersectionalities. I just don't necessarily understand what that's referring to or what it means, or what goal it is for us.
Intersectionalities?
No, I just mean like in general in reference to this committee and
Okay.
our JEDI goals.
Got it.
Yes,
I kind of hear what you're saying, Maddie. Like with so many of these things, they're just such big goals that my question is, what does this look like and how do we do it? You know, I think that's probably the wall that we may hit with so many of these awesome ideas.
Yes, I agree. I have the same questions. My sticky note I'll own is just for that one. I'm saying too big, too vague. Unless someone has like a passion for it and an explanation and like application for it in SAC stuff.
I don't see a way to make it specific and like a direct application, but I think it's important for us to keep it as one of the things that we value, is the recognition of intersectionalities in justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion topics and life in general.
Yes, I definitely agree. It's kind of, while wrapping up the slide, the way I'm seeing it kind of is also if we take a step back, looking at the bylaws that we spend a lot of time doing the wording on. One of them specifically says set goals for JEDI that are actionable and measurable. So I've just been kind of under the thought that that's what we're doing here, and that we've already laid out a lot of the like values and the background kind of overarching stuff, and that what we were working with right here was trying to get those actionable and measurable goals.
And I agree. Maddie, if you'd share the one you have about it, be great to include references. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of something I thought of while I read it, because for the make a commitment to make SAC meetings and documents more linguistically accessible, I just immediately thought of including references. So, like, if somebody were to see the meeting minutes or something like that, and we're just talking about, we've been talking about the landfill for a while, or things like that, and they, like, if they were, say, looking into the SAC for the first time, they wouldn't necessarily know that. So, including references to maybe what we've talked about before, or just the stages where the landfill is out right now, that kind of a thing, is just something I was thinking of.
I agree with that, because even like as a new member, I was just jotting down like questions of stuff to research after, because I didn't want to ask a question and sound completely clueless. So just even a website or something just included in the notes would be super helpful. And I know we try to do that, but I guess it's a lot of extra work too. So is that whole post-it though. Making everything linguistically accessible and translated versions, that's definitely extra, but meaningful work.
That was accessibility and inclusivity. This is education and outreach.
No, the first page we did.
Oh, the other first one was community involvement.
Okay. All right. There's some overlap with that.
I think also the way I was seeing it was that the community involvement piece and the inclusivity is more like bringing people in, the inclusive one, and then the education and outreach is more that outward communication. But again, none of this is set. This is just kind of the buckets that I think Morgan and I put them in from all of the brainstorming things, and not set in stone by any means.
For the About Your City program for 4th and 5th graders, I think that's a great idea. I just wanted to ask, how we're thinking that would look like, or if we know if that's going to be like someone coming to talk to the 4th and 5th graders, or if it's more of a pamphlet, or do we know how that's looking? Okay.
Do you think one would be better than the other? Could be a coloring book. A dot-to-dot coloring book. Can someone move my note about the job training? Smiley faces.
I think it's really interesting that with these notes under education and outreach, that so far in our discussion and the questions like that we have and that we're coming up with, like to me these seem operational, like that they would be able to be operationalized in some way. Like we could figure out what the goals are, we could figure out what the audience is and the target audience and who the inclusiveness part, but like of all of the stickies that we've been evaluating and thinking about and asking questions so far, my opinion so far is that like these seem to be quite operational, quite operationalizable, which is a weird word.
Could you, I don't know, elaborate that or give an example or something a little more?
Yeah, so like if I'm looking at like the Create an About Your City program for 4th and 5th graders, it may not be something like that we all can do, but I can kind of imagine what that program looks like. I can think about what community partners I would want to involve, what, you know, curriculum specialist that I could think about like talking to a curriculum specialist about and figuring out what that curriculum piece looks like. And then figuring out like through the public schools, okay, I know how to contact people. Like I might contact some school principal. Like I could see that kind of happening. These seem kind of doable. And I like that. I mean, not everything on the page, but like another one, for example, the job training and networking opportunity for green jobs. All right, someone said like, let's do a green jobs fair. Like, okay, that's something I know how to do that. Plan a sustainability week event. I actually know how to do that. These are things that like I feel like they could get us in front of the community and raise the kind of raise the awareness and bar on our own community involvement a little bit so far early on. But I realize that we're not saying what we're greenlighting so far. I look at these and my brain is like turning into programs.
I mean, I think on the last slide, which I made just really for our last meeting, it might be a space for us to just say, you know, what we think needs to happen next to actually get to action, right?
Mhm.
Do we need to actually follow the steps that I put in the directions as, you know, because I was just trying to come up with something that might work. But, or do we need to say it's time to just choose one from each area and just actually volunteer and do? I don't know, that, or maybe there's other ideas that I'm not thinking about, but just how do we actually move forward with any of this? Do we finish this process or, do we finish this process or, you know, change direction or, you know, just modify the plan a little bit?
just since it was brought up, Scott, can you just advance to slide 8? And then I didn't know if there was anything on slide 9. So just, okay, feedback, share your thoughts,
I think 9's a blank.
and 9 is, okay, all right. So you can go back to 7. I just wanted to get that up on the board, that that's what 8 looks like right now. Okay?
I have a question, Andy. You have one about encourage schools to establish their own environmental sustainability groups. And I know that, like, I know Urbana has had one, and maybe it's stalled with COVID, but I think there's others and that they don't know each other. So maybe SAC could help, like, just host a gathering, like we could, I don't know, have a potluck or something for the youth
I thought there was like,
green teams.
the Urbana group was trying to do that themselves.
I haven't really checked in with them recently. so
Well,
I'm
way
not
back
sure.
when they started their
Are you staying involved?
group,
No.
I thought they were trying to get, kind of like, go across the city and try and find the other one.
Okay, so there might be progress there. It'd be nice to have them come and tell us what they've been doing this year.
Mm-hmm.
I know they did the podcasts and then
And
I lost
I don't
track.
know, yeah, I lost track too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just gonna say that I think I do still get the emails for like when they're meeting, and I just haven't gotten one in a while, so I'm guessing probably with school coming back and people graduating and stuff, there's definitely a huge slowdown with that in summer.
I think in general, in schools, when it comes to, you know, a club or a group that cares about the environment, it takes a person to be doing that, you know, and probably doing that for free or for like $500 a year. So a lot of times in my experience, kind of teaching in different schools around the state, they just don't have them, or, you know, it's not a continual thing that's like a living, breathing place for kids to go and learn and participate.
But going back to the process and kind of where we go from here, I do like how you have it laid out, Jess, where the step was analyzing and the next prioritizing, and we could kind of focus or hold some of them, and then the volunteer part. I think another helpful piece also would be if SAC members could kind of partner up each month and do a little brainstorming or work on, you know, either a category or like one specific thing, you know, like if you're talking about what is your city stuff and talking about visioning, like I could imagine, you know, Jess and I doing educational material stuff and, you know, kind of producing things outside of the meetings and having like a brainstorm partner in between, I think would also be helpful.
I agree. It will be, you know, we could each choose a thing that is our thing, right? But it is a lot easier when you're collaborating and working with someone. And, you know, that's like one of the Open Meetings Act challenges, is that we can't just be like, let's all do this thing, or, you know, let's 5 of us meet up and crank it out, you know? So, yeah, I think that's a great idea, Grace.
All the sticky notes are in.
Mm-hmm.
So for next steps at the next meeting, okay, so Grace, let me see if this is what you said, just because I'm not sure. So were you thinking that at the next meeting, we would go through with the green, orange, and yellow, but maybe have people answer that question from like, they personally believe that this item is currently green and something like that we should be working on right now. And then put pink sticky notes on things that people are willing to volunteer for. It may be important at this step that if we see one sticky note that's green and we have 2 people that put a pink volunteer next to it, then that kind of can end up organically creating the pairings. Does that seem like a good next step? Yay. And so then for the next meeting, we're also gonna prepare to still be in person, and that we'll still share this Jamboard out during the meeting. I ask that folks do not work or make any changes to the Jamboard that you've worked on this evening. So we may actually have Jess put it back into like a locked scenario so that nobody can work on it in between the meeting. And then when we come back together, we'll use this again. We'll post the Jamboard back up on the screen and then be able to work that together. So that way we're sort of visually workshopping on video together so that it, so that we're not running afoul of Open Meetings Act rules
Okay.
with regard to anyone doing work outside of the meeting. Because 7 or 8 people have worked on this tonight in person, we can't have 7 or 8 people be working on or seeing any work that's happening in between sessions. So
Okay.
it does need to stay the same.
So
thank you for
James
bearing with
couldn't
me.
even, since he's not here, could he add blue Post-it notes or no?
I
It's
would
kind of
ask
a
him to
weird thing
bring
'cause
his note,
It's
you know.
publicly available. Like someone could be watching.
They
any-
could watch, they could see it, but we're not
Right.
having people work on it.
Okay.
Let me reach out to James about it.
But I would recommend
Mhm.
that, I mean, the most straightforward thing would be he read it, make his own list, and bring it to the next meeting.
That's
and
Sure.
just add
what I
them
was
all.
gonna, yeah, that's what I'll talk to him
Sorry.
about.
I think it would be good for all of us to take time to just read the comments of people if you didn't get a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there's it looks like there's probably a way to like download this into not a live version. Is that right? Like download it as a PDF or just a PowerPoint or something, and then share that with SAC. And I mean, people can work on whatever they want outside of the meeting, just not with more than one other SAC member. So like if you have just a PDF of it, people can read through and take their own notes and then share them all at the next meeting, and that's totally cool. Or talk about it with one other person at a time. So I don't know, yeah, if there's a way we can have like a non-live document so that people can see it, maybe put it in our meeting report
In the
and all
meeting
that.
minutes.
I think when I just take like the editing privileges away, then it is just a view-only document for everyone. So then hopefully, then we don't even need an extra link.
So then each slide could be printed and converted into a PDF, and we'll include that in the meeting minutes.
Or, yeah, or just include the link to this,
And
you
the
know?
link. Okay.
So I was when I first started, had my wrong email. I was working with my wrong email, so I could just view it. Then I had to change.
Okay.
It says view only every time.
So, one question I have, just logistic-wise, for these next steps when we're going through and prioritizing, do we want to work on a copy that doesn't have all the blue Post-its? Or no? The other thing is, we could also take the blue Post-its and size them down and just put them all in a little kind of corner, so they're there if people want to read them, and then.
Is the prioritization though gonna have words? I thought it was just gonna be like almost like putting stickers.
Well, you're gonna have your initials on it.
You
Oh,
could,
yeah.
you could initial, you could also, put some comments on there. I think that's up to us, however we want to do it, honestly.
But I was just sorry, I don't know if you, but I was gonna say like, I mean, definitely we shouldn't work on this one because it's pretty loud right now, and especially if we're all prioritizing everything, it's gonna get really cluttered really
Mhm.
quickly. So I don't know about a clean one, but they should at least definitely be sized down.
So what I'll do is I'll leave it exactly like this, but right before our next meeting, I'll size them down so that they're available, but not all over the place. And then also maybe size up for the key ideas that we're missing, then those would be things that we could vote on and prioritize and volunteer for. The one challenge is a lot of people added ideas to the other ideas, so that might be a little confusing. I'll just do my best, okay?
Sounds great, everybody. Thank you for working on this. Next agenda item.
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
I was
Maddie.
just gonna suggest maybe like, I don't know if this is possible, if you could open up this one and just leave it like this, but then you give us another one, a clean one.
For sure.
And then we can like see the new ideas everybody added, like without you having to resize everything and having to take that time. And then we can just take that into account when we do our Post-it notes.
I will absolutely do that.
Like
That's-
Maddie's
We can
idea.
just make a copy. Yep, thanks, Maddie.
All right, so we can close this from the shared screen. Scott, could you put the agenda back up? Thank you. All right, landfill diversion, updates on developing a program generating compost from commercial food scraps. Grace.
Thanks. Just a quick update. The flyer that y'all saw before has gone out to a few places. We've got it to grocery stores of Aldi, Schnucks, Meijer, restaurants of Huaraches Mora Leon, Rick's Bakery, Dancing Dog Eatery, and Casa del Mar. And if you have any other businesses that might generate a substantial amount of food scrap waste in Urbana, let me know and feel free to take it out. We've heard back from one place so far, right, that's potentially interested. And so that's on the kind of food generator end, still looking for places. All the places I've talked to have been interested, but we haven't had the full follow through yet, so I think it's in progress. What else on that? Oh, someone from Public Health said that there's no, health standard issues with health inspection for separating the food waste from the landfill trash. So that's all fine as far as health code and food inspection stuff goes, which is what I was assuming, but it was good to have confirmed. And then the other piece of that puzzle is the hauler. They've been really busy during summer. They said that's their busy time, so it's been a little delayed back and forth. But I think maybe we can still push back to a fall goal deadline or goal start time for the pilot project and see how it goes from there. Another issue is still some funding for the concrete pad at the Landscape Recycling Center. We've been looking into some grant funding. Susan Monty has been awesome, who spoke at our last meeting from Champaign County Environmental Stewards and the County Recycling Coordinator. Is that her title? Do you know? Or your recycling coordinator? No, you're not. No. Something with county environmental or recycling things. She's awesome. And she's been looking into some grant funding and applying to some to get some money for that concrete pad and some other supplies for the pilot project.
Grace, do you know how big that concrete pad has to be or how thick by any chance? Like, is there like a design that goes with it?
We have the specs, but I don't recall them off the top of my head.
But not super large, right? 10 by something or other, 20, I don't know. Yeah, it's probably in an email somewhere.
I'm curious
there.
about the dollar amount that you're talking about. That's what I guess I'm really wondering.
Mhm. It was a
Maybe there is a local business, I don't know of one, that would be willing to just pay to install that. That's what I was wondering.
That'd be great if
As
you
a
know any.
donation. I
Let
can't
us
think
know.
of, I actually honestly cannot think of one, but it just seems like that's very plausible in our community.
But I think he was estimating a few thousand. You have maybe 4,000 or so cost for the pad and other expenses at the Landscape Recycling Center. So it's not
We could do a
crazy amount.
GoFundMe.
Any other questions or thoughts on that? And feel free to reach out if you have any other ideas or questions or know people who want to participate.
I was just gonna ask, where is that flyer that I know you showed us once? I was just wondering where that flyer was, or did you mail that to the different places, or did somebody walk in and give it to them?
I just walked in with the
Okay.
paper printout.
Okay.
Printed some for us.
If you email me the link to it, I would gladly take it to a few more places.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe I sent the thing to people or it was in a minutes somewhere, but I can resend to Scott and have him send that out.
Scott, is that something that could go up on the Urbana website, the flyer? Could it be on like the U-Cycle or somewhere? That'd be great.
Sure.
Yeah, just something I saw in a magazine here. Wanted to share announcement that there's a 13th annual Growing Sustainable Communities Conference in Dubuque, Iowa, October 12th through 13th this year. The little blurb says this conference is packed with comprehensive, impactful, and actionable sustainability ideas, plans, and best practices for local government and business professionals. I was planning on trying to attend, just if anybody else wants to share gas or hotel things or whatever, and just announcement to the public. I don't think there's any qualifications for who goes or not, just the registration fee, which for students is like super cheap. Makes me want to go back to school for the student discount on this one, or for anyone else interested. My understanding is it's open to the public, whoever, just register online, and you can look up. Their website is www.gscdubuque.com for Grow Sustainable Communities Dubuque.
Cool. Can you just email that link to Scott for the minutes as well?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. We've gotten through another SAC meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I have 2 announcements.
Go ahead.
Or 1 announcement, 2 things. Next week, there's going to be 2 geothermal webinars on August 10th and 12th at 12 noon. And they're being sponsored or being run by the U of I Extension. So Scott's going to be talking or a panelist at the Thursday one. And the first one's on Ashley Morgan's going to be talking on the Tuesday one. So the first one's on campus geothermal projects, and the Thursday one is on community case studies.
Could we have a written share thing, or is it just the time, or just
Send out the
summary blurb?
URLs for registration.
Thank you.
They're free.
Any other announcements? Okay. I never know if there's supposed to be a motion or not to adjourn the meeting, so we will motion to adjourn the meeting. Is
So moved.
there a second? Go ahead.
Second it.
Thank you, Thomas. All in favor of adjourning the SAC meeting, say aye.
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 All right, we're done. See everybody next month.